The transmission came in as static, just another burst of cosmic noise. Until it wasn't. By the time they deciphered it, the alien fleet was already here, and they weren't coming in peace. The year was 1977, but it wasn't the 1977 you'd find in history books. The Cold War had ended, not with treaties, but with Earth's first contact, an event that shattered human isolation and opened the floodgates to the stars. What followed was a chaotic scramble, as the great powers of Earth, America, the Soviet Union, and the budding spacefaring nations found themselves rushing to adapt to the vast and violent galactic community. Within 5 short years, humanity had leapfrogged from barely setting foot on the moon to constructing enormous space stations, reverse engineering alien technology, and building ships capable of breaking light-speed barriers. The retrofuturistic aesthetic of the time clung stubbornly to the humans' vessels, polished chrome hulls, bulky control panels, and the ever-present hum of analog machines overlaid on the cutting-edge tech they'd barely come to understand. Despite the rapid advancements, one thing remained constant. Humanity was underestimated. When the Korvall Dominion made contact, they didn't bother sending diplomats. They sent warships, vast behemoths of cold metal, bristling with weapons, and encased in shields that shimmered like oil slicks. The Korvall were one of the galaxy's oldest and most feared empires, having conquered hundreds of star systems with brutal efficiency. To them, humanity was an anomaly. A species that had climbed from the muck to the stars in less than a century was an aberration, and aberrations were to be crushed. "Are you saying that the Korvall are already in orbit?" Commander James Hale's voice carried the weight of disbelief and a quiet rage as he addressed the room of military and scientific minds inside the cramped war room of Earth's orbital station, Atlas. "Yes, sir." Lieutenant Patricia Michaels stood rigid, her hands gripping the back of her chair. "We've detected 5 Korvall dreadnoughts entering Earth's outer defense perimeter. They made no effort to mask their arrival." She swallowed hard. "They know we're here, and they're daring us to respond." The table fell silent, but it wasn't a silence of fear. It was calculation. The men and women in that room weren't politicians. They weren't diplomats. They were warriors, the best of Earth's spacefaring forces, and they'd been preparing for this moment since the day humanity realized it wasn't alone. Hale leaned over the table, his rough, battle-scarred face set in a grimace. "What do we know about them?" "Korvall ships are 3 times the size of anything we've got," Michaels continued. "Shields impervious to any weaponry we've encountered so far. They've got cloaking tech too, but they're not bothering to use it. They see us as insignificant, and we're not insignificant," Hale said, more to himself than anyone else. He stood up straighter, the old Marine in him taking over. "They think they can come here and take our planet like they've taken every other species they've ever encountered. Let's show them what happens when they push us too far." No one questioned the commander. That was the thing about humans. They didn't fold under pressure. They became harder, tougher, more dangerous, and the Korvall, in all their arrogance, were about to find out why that was a very big mistake. The human fleet launched 2 hours later. In terms of sheer firepower, it was a joke compared to the Korvall's dreadnoughts. The Atlas led the charge, flanked by a handful of destroyers, corvettes, and fighter escorts. All human-made, all retrofitted with the best tech Earth had scavenged from across the galaxy. Their greatest weapon wasn't the hardware itself, though. It was the minds operating it. And as the Korvall flagship emerged from behind the dark side of the moon, like some primordial god awakening from slumber, Hale knew they would need every ounce of human ingenuity to survive. The command bridge of the Atlas hummed with tension. Red lights flickered across the control panels, and the faint hum of the ship's engines filled the air as the crew waited for the inevitable. "They're targeting us," Michaels muttered, staring at the sensor readouts. "They're going to fire any second." "Hold," Hale ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos about to unfold. "Wait until they're close." Michael's hand hovered over the shield controls. "Sir?" "They're underestimating us," Hale growled, eyes locked on the colossal ship growing in the viewport. "Let them." Suddenly, a flash of light burst from the Korvall dreadnought. A lance of plasma energy as thick as a skyscraper shot toward the Atlas. But instead of crumpling under the assault, the Atlas's shields flared up, absorbing the blow barely. "They'll fire again," one of the techs shouted. "They won't get the chance," Hale muttered under his breath. "Initiate the FTL slingshot." The bridge crew snapped to action, punching in commands as the ship's engines roared to life. The Atlas lurched forward with blinding speed, pulling an impossible maneuver that sent it streaking toward the dreadnought. Korvall gunners barely had time to adjust as the human ship closed the gap between them. "Now!" Hale shouted. On his command, the Atlas fired. Not at the dreadnought itself, but at a point in space directly in front of it. An empty void that, to most species, would seem like a useless target. But to human engineers, who had spent the last decade cracking the secrets of interdimensional travel, it was the key to their greatest weapon. A tear in spacetime opened before the Korvall ship, a rift, unstable and pulsing with raw energy. The dreadnought, caught off guard, plunged headfirst into the anomaly. There was a flash of blue-white light, and the Korvall vessel was gone, sucked into the void with a deafening silence. The bridge erupted in cheers. "FTL mines," Hale said, turning to Michaels with a grin. "Never gets old." Michaels let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "They're not going to be happy about that." "No," Hale agreed, "but they're going to learn. We don't scare easy." 3 more Korvall ships appeared on the scanners, decloaking and moving into attack formation. They'd seen what happened to their flagship and weren't taking any chances. Shields powered up, weapons primed, they approached in a wedge formation, ready to obliterate anything in their path. "They're not going to fall for the same trick twice," Michaels said, eyeing the incoming ships. "They don't have to." Hale leaned back in his chair, a predator's smile curling his lips. "What's the status of our ground defenses?" Michaels blinked. "Sir, are you suggesting we—" "Yep. Let's see how they handle humanity up close and personal." On the surface of Earth, the Korvall war party descended, sending troops down in sleek landing pods that streaked through the atmosphere like meteors. They thought they'd find a planet full of weaklings, creatures who would cower at the sight of an invading army. Instead, they landed in fields of fire. As soon as the Korvall soldiers set foot on human soil, they were greeted by a barrage of bullets, rockets, and energy weapons. Tanks rolled through the streets, while anti-air batteries lit up the sky with firepower that hadn't existed 5 years prior. Humans, with their grit and ingenuity, had turned Earth into a fortress. Korvall commanders barked orders in their guttural, alien tongue, urging their troops forward. But it didn't matter how advanced their armor was, how powerful their weapons were. The humans fought like devils, turning every corner into a kill zone, every building into a stronghold. And then came the human infantry. The Korvall had never faced soldiers like this. Hardened by decades of Cold War tension, trained for combat in hostile environments, the humans waged a guerrilla war that the invaders had never seen before. They were everywhere at once, disappearing into the smoke, emerging from the shadows with brutal precision. And when they fell, their comrades stepped over their bodies and kept fighting. In space, the battle raged on. The Atlas danced between the Korvall dreadnoughts, using speed and agility to outmaneuver the larger ships. Hale watched as one of the enemy vessels crumbled under concentrated fire from Earth's orbital defenses, the explosion lighting up the black void. "They'll retreat soon," Michael said, her eyes fixed on the readout. "They didn't expect this." Hale nodded. "No one ever does." The last Korvall ship, battered and burning, turned tail and began to flee. It was a rare sight, an empire as mighty as the Korvall running from a fight. But they'd learned a valuable lesson that day. Humans weren't afraid to go to war, and they never backed down. In the aftermath, the Korvall Dominion would issue a statement to the galaxy. Humanity was off limits. Earth was not to be trifled with. For the first time in their history, the Korvall had encountered a species that refused to submit, a species that fought with the ferocity of predators backed into a corner. And as word spread across the stars, one thing became clear. Humanity wasn't just a new player in the galactic community. They were a force to be reckoned with. In time, the galaxy would come to fear them. But for now, Earth stood triumphant. Its people hardened by the fire of war, ready to defend their place among the stars.